Are we doing public or committee of adjustment first?
Committee of adjustment first.
Okay.
We're live, Jane.
Okay. Welcome everyone, and welcome to the committee, members of council, and anyone that is watching us on Facebook Live tonight. Welcome to our committee of adjustment meeting. I'll open the meeting. Is there any disclosure of conflict of interest? Seeing none, I have a motion to accept the agenda. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wensing, seconded by Councillor Manley, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry accepts the Committee of Adjustment hearing agenda of Tuesday, May 25th, 2021. Any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, moving on to, there are no minutes to ratify. Moving on to minor variance MV08 2021. I have a motion moved by Councillor Noble, seconded by Councillor Madden. It is the recommendation of the Planning Department that the Committee of Adjustment approve minor variance application MV08 2021 as submitted. Welcome, Jacob.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will start sharing my screen. All right. This is good?
Yep.
Wait, perfect. All right. So yeah, first minor variance of 2 today, MV08 2021. The owner for this one, Michel Joron and Christina Joron, they live at 21190 County Road 10, Alexandria, so just on the Glen Robertson Road. But the property in question that we're discussing for the minor variance is actually located on Kenyon Concession 3, Part Lot 21. So there's no civic address yet, but the frontage is on the County Road 43 between Apple Hill and Alexandria. I'll show it in a little bit, but it's not at their home address right now. OP designation, agricultural resource lands, and zoning is general ag. So it's right there. So Maxville is here. We've got Alexandria here, 43. So it's pretty much in between right here on 43. So more precisely here. So it's a big property. It's actually a 78-acre property. Just as you can see here, 19299. There's a few civic numbers that exist around. So we haven't issued a civic number yet, but we will. So that's the property in question right here. The purpose of the application, it's very similar to the one we did the last time. So it's actually to seek relief from the zoning bylaw requirements within section 11.2 to permit an accessory storage building for residential use to be constructed prior to the main building. So basically, Mike wants to build his detached garage before the house. So this is getting more and more popular. I guess we're also gonna have another one in a few weeks. So he wants to build a garage first before the main building of the property, which in this case, the property will be used for residential purposes. So there's as you can see here, there's a future driveway for the future house, but this here is what Mike wants to build right away. So it's going to be, according to our zoning bylaw, it's going to be an accessory storage building. So basically, it's going to be storage for residential use. And it's also going to be used for the actual name from the zoning bylaw, a home occupation and industry. So it's for Glengarry Plumbing, basically. They're going there. So he's going to have his business at his home, or part of his business at the home, which is permitted in the zoning bylaw. So he wants to build a shop first and then build a house in the future. So as I mentioned, the property is 78 acres. Although the zoning is agricultural, the use will be residential. So because the use will be residential, this building cannot be built before the main building, which is the house. So we're actually applying for this minor variance here. Mike's applying for the minor variance to be able to permit this building to be built before, because he wants to start right away with this building here. So the building itself is a 44 feet by 86 feet. Building. It's going to be on full foundation. It's going to require a building permit, just like any other building. the property will not have to go under the site plan agreement control. So it's basically just to allow for that building to be built. I have a little picture right here. So from Google Street View, there currently is an entrance. So I checked, I sent an email to STG, assuming that the entrance was applied for with a permit by the previous owners. There was some wood being cut there, I think, in the near past. So the entrance is already existing. We're just going to have to issue a civic number for the address. And then I believe Mike will use the same entrance, or maybe he's going to have, anyway, it's going to be an entrance on that property there. I think I have, yeah, there you go. So this is the building he wants to build. As I mentioned before, 44 by 86 feet, just your standard shop, standard building, full foundation. I believe the walls are 10 feet high. It's going to be steel all around. So it's going to be a nice shop being built there, but no dwelling at this time. So that's why we need to apply for this minor variance here. The 4 tests of the minor variance. So comply with the intent of the official plan. The lands are designated agricultural resource lands, and this permits residential use along with all accessory use to the main building. So the intent of the official plan is met with this application. Comply with our zoning bylaw. So as I mentioned before, the use does comply with our zoning bylaw. The home-based business is also permitted in our zoning bylaw. The only thing here that we need to address is the fact that we're going to have an accessory building built before the main building. So I guess it does comply, with the intent and the purpose of our zoning bylaw. Number 3, deemed suitable and desirable for the surrounding area. So I've just put our little zoning map here. So just to show the surrounding area. So as you can see, all north of 43 at this location is pretty much all agricultural resource lands. And there are I don't think there's any large livestock facility in the area, but it's still all zone ag lands. Most of the properties are used for residential purposes. And then south of the 43, this is rural with some wetlands and floodplain area here. So it's mostly your rural residential. Well, you all know what the 43 looks like. So it's right, it does match the surrounding areas basically. And the other one are minor in nature. So yes, it is minor in nature because as I mentioned before, the use is permitted. All the adjacent lands are matching. So you can consider this, this variance being minor in nature. So my last slide here. Planning staff's in the opinion that the applicant's requested variance to the zoning bylaw can be considered minor, desirable, and appropriate, meets the intent of our zoning bylaw and the official plan. And our recommendation for this is that the planning that the Committee of Adjustment approve minor variance application MV08 2021 as submitted. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Jacob. Are there any questions from the committee? Councillor Noble.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jacob, my question is, as you mentioned, you do have another one coming up. We had one a couple weeks ago, this same kind of issue. And obviously we know that the prices have gone up exponentially. Things disappear every now and again. Is it a big deal for us to make this, I don't know if you'd call it a bylaw or a zoning change so that people could do this in the future? Or is it best that you keep getting asked permission to do this? Like building a storage place before you build your house so you can keep your supplies in it?
Yes, yep, through you, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, it is a good idea that we keep doing these applications one by one. For the most part, yeah, most of the time these days, yes, it's for storage purposes while the person is building. So we can control that. So we know that the intent is there and whatnot. So what may happen if we put like a blanket over the entire township to allow people to do that is that you're going to have some property owners that that, and I don't mean this in a mean way, but what's going to happen is that you're going to have some small businesses on a lot of properties, and the intent will never be to build a home. So you're going to have a building there, a business, and what you know is eventually it will be commercial use, industrial use, and our zoning bylaw will still be ag, and commercial and industrial may not be suitable for that particular location. So doing them one by one like that, the committee can control more what is being built in these cases. And you will also have some small properties in town that will do the same thing. So you'll have like properties in town that only have like a storage building, maybe being vacant, kids, vandalism, and etc. So yeah, it would be a good idea to keep it like that, especially because the zoning is specific. The zoning bylaw is specific that you need to have the main building first. So it's good like that. Yeah.
You have to follow up because you give them a certain amount of time to build a house?
No, there's no time limit on it. So basically they apply. So that's why I'm saying like we can control them more. So basically we know that this happened at that property. So there's no time limit on it. So if Mike wants to build his house next year, he's good. If he only is able to build his house in 5 years, it's also permitted. This accessory building is permitted forever on that property to stand alone by itself. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Williams.
Just two quick questions, please, Jacob. Number one, what if a house is never built? Does that matter? And number two, it's a very large building, and it, will it be used for commercial purposes? And is a commercial use allowed there?
So the zoning bylaw permits home-based business or home-based industry. So what would happen if, let's say, Mike decides to never build his house and just decides to start using this property as a business? Well, if we see that it becomes an issue, we would always be allowed to do an order on the property saying that it's not respecting our zoning bylaw. So if it always remains like that with no house on the property, we could go down that route saying that eventually you will either have to use or have to build a house, or you will have to stop using the building as a business. So in this case, it would just become a residential storage. So we always have that option. Yes.
Deputy Mayor.
Okay, just a quick follow-up, if I may. So should we? I'm not trying to be difficult here, but we lose. I can see us losing track of this property. Like, you don't walk around following, the various activities on all of these different properties, right? So, would it be appropriate to put some kind of condition on there that it does not get used as a commercial building because it's not a permitted use?
We could, but technically speaking, we already have that condition as part of the zoning bylaw. But we could put one. Yes, the committee is allowed to add some conditions. Although, and again, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but like Mike has already started to like, I believe the plans for the house are done. It's really just a question of having a storage while he's building, costs of materials. So it's hard to start both at the same time right now because the costs have gone crazy. So again, I'm not telling the committee what to do. As the planning department, I don't think it's necessary, but it's not my decision. Yeah.
I think just maybe on a go forward basis. I mean, we know that Mike has he's getting plans in place. I've heard that already as well. Just go on a go forward basis. Maybe we add something into there that they have, a 5-year period to build a house. And as such, if that doesn't happen, because I agree with the deputy mayor, we could go forward and you leave, and in 10 years, this council's all gone. I'm being generous. We're probably all gone next election, but it's fine. But just kidding. You know what I mean? Well, and we'll absolutely lose track of it. And so I think it's something worthwhile that we put a time limit on it that they have to build a house. And, if that's their intention to do, then we should have that as their intention. Councillor Wensink.
I think under normal circumstances, that would be a great idea, but we're still in a pandemic And it's very unusual to know which supplies are readily available and others aren't. It's hard to predict. These are very uncertain times. I think once we're out of the pandemic and things are settled, then perhaps we could take another look at it. But right now, I don't think is the right time to make that kind of a deadline for someone that's.
And I'm not asking for it to be right now, but I think it should come back to us because it's going to happen. People are going to build these. Everybody tries to find ways around bylaws, and you know, we know most of the people around here, but there are a lot of newcomers, and that come that we don't know. So they build, and you know we need to have some recourse in the future. Is all I'm saying. So I'm 100% in favor of it tonight. And as you said, maybe in the next few months, we could maybe just have the planning department come back with a recommendation. Are there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I've read the motion. All those in favor? Motion is carried. There are none opposed. Okay, moving on to minor variance MV09 2021. I have a motion moved by Councillor Madden, seconded by Councillor Noble. It is a recommendation of the planning department that the Committee of Adjustment approve minor variance application MV09 2021 as submitted. Jacob.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I will share my screen. Okay. Your screen sharing is paused. New share. Sorry about that. Can you see my screen?
Well, it says has started screen sharing. It's black and it says has started screen sharing, but that's all it says.
I'll stop all the sharing and we'll start over. Sorry about that.
Still nothing.
Okay.
Well, Jacob, you know, unfortunately, we do have it all in front of us. I know the public won't be able to see it, but maybe we can move forward without the screen.
Sure. I have the button that says resume share, but for some reason it's not going. Okay, so I'll stop sharing, I guess.
Yeah.
There. Okay, perfect. Yep. So yeah, so next one here, we have minor variance 09 2021. The owners are Harry and Kim Ewan. As you can see on your little report there, it's located on pretty much the middle of Alexandria here, just a little bit north of the pond. More precisely on your next screen, you will see that it's located at 113 Harrison Street. So it's right in the middle of a residential area, the official plan urban settlement area, which is Alexandria, and it's considered rural district. Zoning is residential first density. And the purpose of the application is to seek relief from the zoning bylaw requirement within section 5.1 to permit the location of an accessory building for residential use from the required 1.5 meter to the proposed 1 meter for rear yard depth setback. So here what happened, if you look at one of the good pictures to look at here is the one where you see the red arrows with the dimensions. So Mr. Ewan came to me, he wanted to build a little building. So the building is under 105 square feet. So he does not need a permit to build a building. And I explained to him that even though the building did not have to go through a building permit process, it still has to meet the zoning bylaw, which says that with a building that's under 10% of your lot area, that is under 5 meter high, and that it's used for accessory use for the main dwelling, you're allowed to put it at 1.5 meter, but from the property line. So in this case, what happened is that the property line was mistakenly located, and the building ended up being too close to the property line. So it's actually at 1.5 meters, but from the other building and not from the property line. So the neighboring building that you see on the previous picture here, it says garage. This one is approximately 2 feet from the property line. So they measured actually from that building. So they ended up being 2 feet too close to the property line. So what Mr. Ewan is asking for here is a minor variance to allow for that building to stay there, because it's already started. So the concrete is poured, the building construction has started. So he's asking for a minor variance to be allowed to keep the building there. So the building is very small, it's very short. If you look at the pictures on the next picture also, it's 7 feet high at the plate, but it's only 7 feet long. So it's very short. It was circulated to all the neighbors. We did not receive any complaints, even though the one that's really, really close. Although, mind you, this neighbor has a garage that is closer to the property line than what is proposed here, but it's been like that prior to 2000. So it's considered legal non-conforming. And again, here, the 4 tests. So comply with the intent of the official plan. Well, yes, again, it's being used as an accessory storage for residential use, which is permitted in the residential district. Second test, so if it complies with the intent of the zoning bylaw, it does comply. It's residential first density, and the building is small. It's within all the requirements. So he's complying with every other requirement of the zoning bylaw except for the rear yard setback. So it does comply with our zoning bylaw. Deemed suitable for the surrounding areas. Well, you can see I added a little picture here where all the neighborhood is pretty much 1-story single family dwellings, and this is a small building being built at the back of this house there. So it is desirable. It is matching the surrounding areas. If it's minor in nature, again here I just wrote, although it's a 33% reduction, it's still very minor in nature because we're only asking for a reduction in the setback where the neighbor is also close to the property line. That doesn't really matter, but it just goes on to say that the neighbors also the surrounding areas it's all residential first density. Buildings are a little bit tight, so it is considered minor in nature. Planning staff's in the opinion that the request can be considered minor, desirable, and appropriate, meets the intent of our zoning bylaw and our official plan. So it's the recommendation of the planning department that the Committee of Adjustment approves minor variance MV09 2021. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Jacob. Are there any questions from the members of the committee? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Okay, Councilor Deputy Mayor, you're in favor. Thank you. And that concludes our Committee of Adjustment meeting. I have a motion moved by Councilor Massey, seconded by Councilor Manley. There being no further business to discuss, the Committee of Adjustment hearing was adjourned at 6:53 p.m. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, we will open up the public meeting of planning. Are there any disclosure of conflict of interest? Seeing none, motion to accept the agenda. I have a motion moved by Councilor Manley, seconded by Councilor Wensing, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry accepts the public meeting agenda of Tuesday, May 25th, 2021. Any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. And ratify the minutes. I have a motion moved by Councilor Madden, seconded by Councilor Noble, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry accepts the revised minutes of the public meeting of planning of Monday, March 8th, 2021. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion is carried. Moving on to zoning amendment Z09 2021. I have a motion moved by Councilor Massey, seconded by Deputy Mayor Williams. Oh, sorry, I was just about to adjourn the meeting. So go ahead. I know there's no motions for this. So Jacob, if we're going into Z09 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will just try this again because it will be very useful to have that. Oh, looks like we're good, I think.
Yep.
Oh, just had to give it a bit of time. We're in St. Albert here, so I guess the internet can be slow. Here we go. Perfect. So we're good?
Yep.
Okay, well, so zoning bylaw amendment number Z09 2021. Here, the owner, as you can see, number company, his name is George. Location, again, this property does not have a civic number yet. It's located on Front Street West in Alexandria. Legal description is there, Lock Hill Concession 1, Part Not 8. So it is a lot by itself. It's been through a severance a few years ago, so you will recognize the property probably. The official plan designation, again, urban settlement area, which is the village of Alexandria. Commercial district is the actual designation. And the zoning is currently residential first and city. So as you can see right here, this is Alexandria. So it's located the south end of town right here, more precisely right there. So for those of you who remember, this was a severance done by Stéphane Bouchard a few years ago. So this here used to be one large property. So he severed off a property here, one lot here, and another lot right here. So this is Giant Tiger, Dairy Queen right here, and this is now GAG. So just to locate everybody, this is Front Street, existing single family dwelling here, and there is no civic number yet assessed for this property. So the property in question we're talking about here is this one right here. The purpose of the application. So here, the purpose of the application is to rezone the property from residential first density to residential second density to permit the potential construction of a semi-detached dwelling or a duplex. So here, what we're asking for, I know sometimes we do have some plans, some elevations to show of what the project is. In this case, when writing the report, we did not have any specific plans in mind, but a semi-detached was proposed. So what we, with the owner, what we decided to do is to move forward with the request for the zoning amendment to change the property to R2. So basically, what the owner would be able to do after, if this passes, is that he'd be able to either use the property R2 or R1. So in this case, what he wants to do is a semi-detached. I'll explain it a little bit after, but yeah, that's what we're going with right now. So as you can see, R1 here, we're in a mix of R1. We have some R4 at the back here. It's on hold. This is actually owned by Saka Development. We have some commercial a little bit here, commercial there, and here it's agricultural restricted. So there's actually some single family dwellings on these properties also. So it's a little bit of a mix around there. And I'll just, yeah, there you go. So we have a few pictures. So you will recognize Dairy Queen right here. So the property in question is just here back behind the trees. Okay, so Giant Tiger's here. We're looking west. So this is where the lot is located. Looking at it from the other side. So this is the existing single family dwelling right here. And this big tree that you see here is close to being on the property line. So the property is back behind the cedar hedge right there. That's where the lot is located. So we have a 2-story single family dwelling here and pretty much commercial all around after that. In conclusion. Okay, well, all right, we'll go with the report again. I'm missing a few pictures, but I guess we'll keep going with this here. Sorry about that. So yeah, the discussion here was that the lot is currently 62 feet by 115 feet. So it's approximately 0.13 acres. It's a little bit irregular. As you can see, it's not a perfect rectangle. The lot is big enough to accommodate R2. So we do not need to incorporate any variance for the lot area or whatnot. So this is all okay. Again, as I mentioned in my report here, we don't have any detailed plans, but we got some after the report was written. So if the owner decides to go, well, should the owner decide to go with what he's proposing right now, he will have to eventually apply for a minor variance on the property because all of the requirements. So if we change this property to R2, if someone comes with a building permit application, it would have to comply with all the requirements that's in our zoning bylaw for R2. So if, let's say most of the time, the one we see is side yard setbacks. So if the side yard setbacks are not being met with the R2, well, he'll have to come and do another planning application for a minor variance to allow for the reduced setback for interior side yards, basically, or lot coverage or whatever. So in this case here, the zoning bylaw does not incorporate any of reduced requirements. So if anything is not compliant after when the building permit is proposed, he'll have to come and apply for a minor variance. So this here is only to allow for a duplex or semi-detached to be built on the property. We check with Public Works. Again, there's no issues for the entrance, so a civic number can be issued there. Services can be brought to this property. So Public Works said that it's a force main over there, so there's just a little bit of infrastructure that would have to be constructed on the property at the owner's expense to be able, so it's just, it's not gravity fed, so it has to be pumped. So sanitary sewage would have to be pumped into the force main. So this is just because of the way the layout and the setup for the sanitary system is built in Alexandria. So this property here, when this comes to development, we'll also have to figure out how we do this one. So we're only discussing this one here, and the force main runs on Front Street here. So it can be accommodated, but there's just a little bit of work, but the owner is aware of that. We explained what was in question here, and water was not an issue. So provincial policy statement. So here I just added a few quotes from the PPS 2020. So it says that in settlement areas, so such as like this one here, shall be based on densities and a mix of land use, which includes efficiently land and resources, and are appropriate for the infrastructure and public services facilities which are planned or available. So in this case, it was deemed compliant or deemed appropriate because the services are available. There's just a little bit, like I said, maybe some infrastructure to be built at the owner's expense on the property, which was explained to him. So basically the intent is met. The SDG official plan, so same thing here. Within the urban settlement area, the official plan encourages for a diversification. Oh, I'm surprised I got this word right. Diversification of densities in residential areas. So this is what we're proposing here. Basically, we're just proposing an increase in the density. We're not actually changing the intent of the official plan. So it's still going to be residential, just changing it to R2. So again, as Mr. Mayor said earlier, we do not do recommendations. So what we will do, we're just have a little conclusion here. We will take the comments, and this will be brought back to the next council meeting where a decision will have to be made. So for this one here, in conclusion, the proposed zoning amendment conforms to the PPS 2020 and with the intent and purpose of the SDG official plan, and it promotes the efficient use of land and is deemed appropriate for urban settlement areas such as Alexandria. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Jacob. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I think similar to the minor variance, we were looking at the other meeting, committee of adjustment. Anyway, we're going to be seeing a lot more of these types of requests coming forward with the lifting of the development freeze in Alexandria. It's excellent news, but I think we're going to have to be careful and potentially a little bit cautious about what we allow to be developed on particular lots, given that we know developers higher density. I understand that's desirable. We need the housing. There's no question, but for a developer, for them it is financially advantageous to put as much, intensity on as whatever size of a small size of lot that they can, and they'll make more money off of it. So I'm just curious, and I'm just thinking we're going to need to, going forward, maybe put a little bit more thought into exactly how we're going to handle these types of applications. Is the lot sizable enough? You say it's big enough, Jacob, but it's very narrow and very long. So is it going to be squeezed in there up next to a single family dwelling that is basically going to ruin their their view next door and kind of hem them in? I just think we need to be a little bit careful, because then we know we're going to have another one of these just to the north, where they're going to probably be asking the same thing. We just want to make sure that we're allowing appropriate development in appropriate locations, and not creating an overly densely populated lots when they're just stuck on a postage size lot, if you get my meaning. So are all those owned by the same owner? Like, is the single family dwelling, did they sell those properties off?
The single family dwelling is owned separately.
So are they the ones that severed it and then sold the severed lots?
No, it was purchased it was purchased from the owner who severed the other two lots, but those lots were severed when the property was purchased.
Yeah. Right. So they would have known that something.
Yeah, but now, Jacob,
Okay,
who are the complaints from
ahead,
that we've gotten, the comments that we have gotten?
On this one,
Yeah.
we did not receive any comments.
Oh, I thought you said we got comments after the writing of the report.
No. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I meant we received the owner, George, actually sent us some plans after.
Okay.
And it goes on to a little bit of my, if I may, Ms. Deputy Mayor. So so we're changing it to R2. In the case where the owner would want to build an R2 use property, so a semi-detached or a duplex, he would have to comply with those setbacks. So for an R1, for example, you're allowed to put your house, depending if you have 2 stories and an attached garage and whatnot, but the shortest distance you're able to put it from the property line is actually 1.2 meters, so 4 feet from the property line. With an R2, it's actually 2.4 meters from each side, so 8 feet from each side, which is exactly made for the purpose of what you just said there. So it's not crambled in between the 2 properties. So what may happen is that if they wish to have the semi-detached built closer to 8 feet from the property lines, in this case, they would have to apply for the minor variance. And in this case, your comment would probably be a lot more valuable as to, is it deemed appropriate that a semi-detached would be stuck in between where a minor variance would be applied for. But right now, it's just the actual zoning designation we're changing. So there's no reduction in any setbacks for now.
Okay. Is there any further? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Jacob. Mr. Mayor, quick.
Yep.
Just a quick follow-up. So, I think I understand what you're saying, Jacob. And so right now I realize we're just looking at the changing of the zoning. But, chances are, this developer is going to come back and ask for minor variance on it. And then, the process will be so far along that, they'll say, well, it's already designed, and, and that could put our backs up against the wall in terms of potentially being, not forced, but our backs against the wall to make, a decision that maybe isn't the best. And I guess what I'm saying is that because I do believe we're going to be seeing a lot more of these, I don't know, maybe we need to have some kind of, discussion / education with council, so that when these come in front of us, we know we know exactly, what the process is going to be and where we should be asking, the really pertinent questions so that we're not, at the end of the day, I'm not saying that this isn't a good idea. I'm just saying we need to know that it's a good idea. And right now, I'm not so sure about that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Madden.
Mr. Mayor, quick question. Jacob, when applications come like this, is it fair to say that most of the time the owner and or developer already has plans in mind for what they want to put on that lot? Like you said, you got the designs after the report was done, which, I got the impression you would have liked to have had them before. If you had had them before, would we have seen them in this report? So is it reasonable to say that going forward, we should wait until we have some plans from them or an intent from them? Is that reasonable, or is that asking them too much?
It's, sorry, Mr. Mayor. Yeah,
Nope.
it's for sure. It's always a good thing to have. Like, to answer your question, it's always it always adds some backbone to your application when you have all your horse in a row. When this is what I want to build. That's why I want to change it to R2. Boom. But as Ms. Deputy Mayor said, we may have more and more of these applications in the future, and being a seller, your property has a lot more value where you can sell it as an R2 as compared to an R1. So we cannot really force an owner to come up with some plans just to change the zoning, because it may be just a question of value of the land and a question of is it appropriate for Alexandria to have an R2, R3, or R4 there? So most of the time in rural communities like this here, yes, the owner has the plans and he knows exactly what he wants to do. If you go in larger cities, you will see most of the time these applications will be applied for with no plans, because it's just for value of land, right? They want to change the zoning to be able to sell it as an R2, where you will have probably more money for your land. So it's, I guess, I'm not 100% sure of what to answer. So in most of the cases, yes, but yeah.
Well, just a quick point to follow up, if I
Go
may.
ahead, one follow-up, go ahead.
If they came with this application with plans, we wouldn't necessarily be able to hold them to those plans. They'd be able to change those plans after the fact as well, right?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And
Fair enough.
yeah.
So I guess if you're telling us that the property is large enough to put R2 development on it, we have nobody complaining about the development. So therefore we pass the development, but yet we still have the chance at when they bring forth their plans for us, when they need a minor variance. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to, you said it right. So here the application is brought to the public meeting of planning. So this is really just to discuss zoning. Yeah. So technically speaking, you could not, if the intent and everything, and if everybody is all in to change it to R2, it would be odd to defer the application because the setbacks are not met. I don't know if I explained myself correctly, but this is the decision and that's why you have the committee of adjustment. So in some townships, the committee of adjustment are completely different people. So these people would decide if the setbacks may be reduced, but council through this committee here would decide if the zoning can be changed. So it technically is two very different things. Although we discuss them all at the same time, it's two different things. Okay. Yeah. That's what I don't know if I explained myself correctly. That's right. Yeah.
No, exactly. Okay, last comment, Councillor Manley.
Yeah, just a quick comment, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Jacob, is the owner of the property aware that in order to get what he's planning to put on there done, he would have to have amendments done?
Yeah, we talked to him this morning actually to confirm, because when I got the plans, I looked at the plans and I said, well, this doesn't fit on the property because he's too close to the property. It would fit on an R1 because but it doesn't fit on an R2. So we said, at this point, what do you decide? If we go forward, I cannot just add the setbacks right now. So I told him, it's either we move forward with just a blanket R2, or we defer to pass it at the next meeting. So he's fully aware that he may have to apply for minor variances. Yes.
Okay, and he's aware that it may not pass.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next minor variance, MV09 2021. I have a motion moved by,
It would be zoning, Mr. Mayor. Zoning Z11.
yep, zoning Z11 2021. Go ahead, Jacob.
Yep. Okay, I will try to share again. Et voilà. Looks like it's working.
Yep.
Excellent. All right. So, yeah, minor variance. Voyons, sacrifice. Sorry. Zoning amendment Z11 2021. So the owner for this one is Wilco Finger. Location of the property. So here, the address I have here is actually for the property in question. So 21370 Brody Road in Dalkeith. Official plan designation, agricultural resource lands, and the zoning is general agricultural. So here I have just a big overview. So you have Dalkeith up here, you have Glen Sandfield down here. So it's approximately right here. So just a little bit west of these two towns there. More precisely right here. So this is Brody Road when the road curves like this. So it's the property right here. So as you can see, it's a big property. It's actually 98, I believe, 98 acres. Yeah, I think it is. Sorry, 98 acres. And what we, so this is actually a condition from a severance. So as you are aware, when an owner has a property like this with a house, some building, when it's deemed surplus to the farming operations, he's allowed to sever off his house, but he has to do a zoning amendment to prohibit some things. In this case, as you will see a little bit later, because CASHA changed the process a little bit where we do a housekeeping at the end of the year or at every 6 months to pass them all at the same time. But this one is just a little bit different because of the building. So I will explain later. So, but this is what it is. It's actually a zoning amendment for a surplus dwelling to a farming operation. Okay, so this is the property right here. So as you can see, this is our zoning layer here. Mostly all the blue is agricultural. So it's in the middle of agricultural lands. There's fields pretty much all around, livestock facilities and the surroundings also. So here I don't know if you read all the things we're applying for here, but the purpose of the application seems to be complicated, but it really isn't. So I'll just go through that here. So the actual purpose of the application is to rezone both the severed and the retained portion of the subject lands according to consent application B4-21, condition number 2. So at the end of the day, it really just is a severance. And as part of the severance, we just added the condition where they have to pass the zoning to prohibit agricultural use in this case it's on the severed land, and to prohibit residential use on the retained land. So at the end of the day, that's what it is. But we have all these requirements also. I'll just show them from the little map right here. So this is a little close-up of the property here. We have, so what's happening here is that we have the house here. We have one garage here, one garage there, and these two buildings here are being kept with the house. So they're being kept on the same property as the house here. This big building here and this one here are being kept on the other property. So they're being actually kept as agricultural storage. They are already agricultural storage right now, but they are being kept with the agricultural land. So that's why the severance is a little bit more tricky, because as you can see here, the two buildings are very close to each other. So I will just go, yeah, right here. So the view is, it turned 90 degrees there. So this is the severed portion. So if you go down that way here, that's the road. The long driveway is here. You get to the dwelling right here. So you have the garage, you have a little shed, and you have another shed here. So this is all being kept on the severed portion with the dwelling. The other The other portion, the retained portion, has this shed right here. So the larger agricultural facility. The other one isn't an issue because it's far away enough. So that being said, why there are so many items, it's just because, as you can see here, the buildings are all close to the property line. So first of all, on this severed portion, what we need to do with the zoning amendment is to prohibit any agricultural use. So just like any other severance for surplus dwelling. The other thing, acknowledge the minimum required lot frontage deficiency from 45 to 18.3. So this is completely at the road here. The frontage of the property is a little bit more narrow. So, well, a lot more narrow. Instead of 45, it only has 18.3 meters. So that's one of the items. The other one here, acknowledge the minimum required rear setbacks deficiency for the shed. So for this building here, so the rear yard, as you can see, we only have 20 feet here, 20 feet, which is 6 meters. But in our zoning bylaw, you're actually required 15 meters there because the building is a little bit too high to be considered just a residential accessory building. So it requires 15. We only have 6. So that's one of the things. The next one is rear yard setback for the garage. So this one is small enough to be considered a residential storage, but you need 1.5 and we only have 1 meter. So as you can see here, 3.5 feet from the building to the property line. So we're asking for a reduction in this one here. And the other one is for which one? It's for the shed. So for this one here, in the interior side yard setback from the required 6 to 2.4. So we should have 8 feet somewhere. Yeah, right here. So 7.9 feet. So from this property line here to this one, we're supposed to have 6 meters, so 20 feet, but we only have 8 feet. So on this side, we're okay, but we're asking for a reduction here. So this is for the severed portion. And if we look at the retained portion now, so this here, the two only things for this one, the first one, very simple, to prohibit any residential development. So the retained portion would not be able to have residential, so would not be allowed to have a house on it anymore. And a reduction in the required interior side. So because of the shape of the property here, even though this faces or is parallel with the road, this is actually an interior side yard. So the front setback is actually from the road property line, but this is considered an interior side. So as you can see, we only have 3.5 feet. So 1 meter, and we are required to have 6 meters from this property line here to the building. So that's another one of the deficiencies. So as I mentioned before, it sounds complicated, but the only thing, it's because we're separating the lot like this here because we want to keep these. I'm showing the building with my hand. Can you see my screen? So the buildings here are being kept with the house, and the shed is actually being kept with the ag land. So that's why there are so many. Again, this would have just been a regular, like in the housekeeping, but I decided to do it like that just to make sure we have all the requirements acknowledged for future purposes. If I keep going here, so that's the severance. So as you can see, the shape of the severance here, so it is kind of a flag lot, just it's separating here in the middle of some buildings. So that's 98 acres here. And I think we're severing off 1 point something. Yeah, this is 94. And the pink area here is actually 1.23 acres. So provincial policy statement. So as you know, lot creation in prime ag lands is discouraged and may only be permitted in certain circumstances. So this circumstances is that the new lot would be limited to a minimum size to accommodate the building, the accessory buildings and whatnot, and prohibit residential development on the other portion. So by doing that zoning amendment, it is considered consistent with the PPS 2020. And from the county's official plan, they permit lot creation in ag lands. Again, the same thing. They have to be kept to a minimum, and we have to apply that zoning bylaw for residential on another one and ag on the other one. So yeah, not the recommendation, but the conclusion is that this complies with the official plan and with the PPS. And again, this will come back at next council meeting for an actual decision. And yeah, that's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Jacob. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Go ahead. If I can just, before we go ahead, just if I want everybody to know that this is a public meeting. So this is more to it to talk about public comments as opposed to questions that are posed at the actual council meeting. But
But we'll have time to talk about this at the council meeting then. Okay, I'm fine then.
go ahead. No, it's Councilor Manley.
No, I'm good for tonight.
Any further questions or comments?
Okay, so I can,
Yeah, go
Wait,
ahead.
I can wait till after. This will come back up. Well, this won't come back up tonight, though.
No, it's not coming back up tonight. It's coming back at the next council meeting.
Then
Go ahead.
Jacob, and then I'll ask my question.
Yeah, well, Mr. Mayor, yeah, I completely agree with what you said. It's just if we need some answers, like if we have some questions that need answers at the meeting, if I can prepare for the response or whatever, this would also be a good idea though to mention it. Like we did not have any comments from the public though, but I just want to say, like, if we need answers, maybe get in touch with me tomorrow or something so I can prepare for the actual council meeting. Yeah.
Go ahead, Councilor Noble.
Okay, so then I won't bring up the big question of what are we doing about lollipop severances? I'll just ask you the simple question. Is there another entrance that will be put on here for access to the land? Or will they continue to use the driveway of the severed portion?
Okay, good question. I would assume they will do another entrance, but I will definitely check that out. Yeah.
Okay, that was my question as well.
Yeah, I forgot about that one. I remember you guys asking that question before. I'll check it out. Yeah, for sure. I would assume that they will use a new entrance just for usefulness purposes, but I will definitely check it out. Yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I have a motion moved by Councilor Massey, seconded by Deputy Mayor Williams. There being no further business to discuss, the public meeting was adjourned at 7:26 p.m. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, we are going to move right into our next meeting. We'll call the meeting to order. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, motion for the agenda. I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Williams, seconded by Councilor Massey, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry accepts the agenda of the regular meeting of Council on Tuesday, May 25th, 2021. Any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion is carried. Moving on to adoption of the previous minutes, I have a motion moved by Councilor Massey, seconded by Councilor Noble, that the minutes of the following meetings be adopted as circulated. Regular meeting of Council, May 10th, 2021. Committee of the whole meeting, May 19th, 2021. Any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Moving on to staff reports, Administrative Department, Old McMillan Road widening. I have a motion moved by Councilor Noble, seconded by Councilor Manley, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry approves bylaw 22-2021, being a bylaw to confirm the acquisition of certain lands and to dedicate the same as part of the public highway known as Old McMillan Road. And that bylaw 22-2021 be read a first, second, and third time and adopted in open council on May 25th, 2021. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
So this is a bylaw presenting to council this evening for Old McMillan Road. Council will remember that the water main runs along this road, and that when the water main was ran up the road, there was not the proper road allowance at that time. So this is a simple bylaw to widen the road to the 66 feet, which is required. The property owner is aware and will be paying him the amount for fair market value for the strip of land. It is quite long. It runs up the side of his property, but he's aware and he will receive compensation for that.
Okay, thank you. Questions from members of council? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Moving on to the Regional Waste Management Study. I have a motion moved by Councilor Manley, seconded by Councilor Madden, that the council accepts administration report number AD 2021-09 for information purposes only. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So council will remember, I believe all of our council members were in attendance at the regional waste management study proposal that was back in March. So the CAOs have met with the consultant and the county and some of the staff that were on that report, preparation of it, following that meeting, just to clarify some of the points and also the next phases. So I included in the report that council has before them this evening 4 questions that we've been asked to answer by the county. So certainly we can discuss them tonight. I would maybe encourage council to look at the report, look at the questions, and perhaps by the end of this week, if you can submit your answers, if you have any to them. So the first question is just about some of the opportunities that we see with collaboration with the waste management. So whether that's in collection contracts or recycling or garbage. And then also what other information that you would like to see, because what we've seen so far is phase 1 and phase 2 of the report. So there is phase 3 and 4. And the next steps in that is to look at collaboration opportunities. So whether that's unified public relations, education, whether there's some contracts that we can perhaps go in together on, how the recycling fits into that. And unfortunately, I know Brenda, you sort of follow the blue box also, and perhaps Councillor Madden, there was a letter from AMO that came out that was not great news, that there is more of a delay because of COVID to the blue box program. So we'll have to keep trudging along here on our own decisions when it comes to the recycling. So that will be a consideration now as we look through this report with the regional waste management. Because I think we were all hopeful that perhaps we'd have some answers or, some better timelines, but it looks like it's going to be a delayed. And then phase 4 of this project is implementation. So whether that looks at the CAO table with a consultant, we talked quite a bit about perhaps it's not a 6 lower tier altogether on certain things. Perhaps it's, a north-south and east-west type of collaboration. And things like that. Because I know one of the discussions that was really prevalent in the presentation at the county table was the idea that if there's a majority that rules, that everyone has to join. And so we had more of a discussion at the CAO table with the consultant that that's certainly not the intention of the report, that we're looking at sort of a opportunity for some savings. But certainly that service is still something that's very important because this is a service we provide to our residents, right? So the other 2 questions are just about what sort of input do you think we could do if we had like a different structure as far as perhaps continuing with this joint waste management, whether it should be something we look at the county level. And then if there's any other unique items or issues. Now we know here in North Glengarry we do have the rare plant, which is our unique issue. But if there's anything else the council wants to see, certainly, and if there's anything outside of these 4 questions as you read through the report, you remember that report from the county that you want to see included, please reach out to me this week. Just send me an email and I'll go forward. If there's any questions this evening, I can certainly take them.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Are there any questions from members of council? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think these are good questions, Sarah. But I do think that as North Glengarry Council, we really need to figure out what we're going to do with the rare plant before we can get into any kind of discussion, certainly with regards to recycling and any kind of partnerships, because until we have that question settled, then we cannot make any partnerships. And so, and frankly, I think we should and need to settle the rare question sooner rather than later. If we're going to wait for the government of Ontario to figure out the Blue Box program, we're going to be waiting for a long, long time. So I'd like to see us have some kind of special meeting where we can really get down into the nuts and bolts of rare and start making some solid decisions. And then with regards to the other questions, like I'll pass my comments on to you, Sarah, but I feel that some kind of a broader discussion amongst council would be valuable, because otherwise we're making these comments in a little bit of a vacuum, which is difficult. It's sometimes, lacking some context. I know that we've got a very large plan in front of us, the waste management plan, phase 1 and 2. But there's a ton of information, and I'd kind of like to see us dissect some of that in order to make it meaningful for North Glengarry particularly, so that we're kind of all on the same page. But I don't know if there's time for that. Do you, do you need to get these comments in sort of yesterday, or can we incorporate a broader discussion on waste management in conjunction with a conversation about rare? Because I think we need to have more discussion around the table.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So certainly, Deputy Mayor Williams, I can speak to our new Director of Public Works, Tara, about rare. We've had some good discussions so far, but we'll speak about maybe something coming to council. Probably at a committee of the whole is the best thing, or a special meeting would be even better to bring that forward. I would say certainly we can discuss these in the context of rare at that time. I don't think there's anything here that would contextually change the phase 3 and the phase 4. Because I know that the phase 3 is all about collaboration. And what was very clear from the CAOs was that as we move forward with this waste management committee and the report that's to come, is that we want to be updated regularly where they are with the collaboration to make sure that we're going in the right direction, right? So we don't want to get to phase 3, phase 4 and a final report and then it not hit on the things that are important. So there's no rush really on the questions. If anyone wants to give them to me this week, if not, we can work through, and certainly I'll speak to the Director of Public Works about perhaps bringing something. I do agree with you on the blue box. We don't want to wait for that because like I said, I was quite disappointed that they're not moving forward on it a bit faster.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. And yeah, I agree that we've waited long enough on rare, and we need to make some decisions. And again, we've been holding out for the change of the blue box program with the provincial government for forever now, and it just keeps getting put back. And I think COVID is a real sorry excuse for that, given the fact that everyone is still working, apparently still working in the federal government. We've continued to do the business of the Township of North Glengarry. It's not ideal over Zoom calls, but everybody's still working and we're still getting the business done. So there's no excuse for postponing it. So I think it's just this is just another message from the government that we're not going to see anything in the near future. So we need to make a move soon. Deputy Mayor, I think you were going to have a follow-up there. No, you're good. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Okay. I have read the motion. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. Moving on to Fire Department Automatic Aid Township of Champlain renewal. I have a motion moved by Councillor Madden, seconded by Councillor Wensink, that the council hereby adopts bylaw 21-2021, being a bylaw to authorize an automatic aid agreement between the Corporation of Township of North Glengarry and the Corporation of the Township of Champlain, and that bylaw 2021 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted in open council this 25th day of May 2021. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. This is the same report that was to the committee as a whole on May 19th. There's been no further changes since that report. However, just a little bit of background. We've had this agreement in place since May 2013 with the Township of Champlain for an automatic aid agreement for the northeastern portion of our township. Both townships are in mutual agreement of the agreement in front of you. So we see no further. There was a few changes that were made in terms of the mapping, as well as some language to better indicate the areas of service and some operational requirements. But further, that concludes the report.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from members of council? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. Moving on, we've removed, we should have done that at the beginning of the meeting, but new business under 9A, which was support the resolution from the city of Brantford, which was to open up outdoor activities, which has occurred. Hopefully we can come with one that would say open up business soon, but anyways, our numbers are down. Today we're down to 131. Which is good news. And so hopefully we can keep that downward trend and keep getting needles in our arms so that we get through this and get our businesses open. So we will move on to 9B, which is Upper Canada District School Board Remote Learning. I have a motion moved by, Councillor Noble, seconded by Councillor Manley, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry supports the United County of SDNG in the Upper Canada District School Board position on permanent remote learning, and that staff be directed to draft a letter on behalf of the Mayor to the Premier of Ontario and the Minister of Education communicating this support and Council's concern regarding the possible implementation of permanent remote learning after the COVID-19 pandemic. And I've chosen Sarah to make this make this presentation as she is living it. So go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So certainly this was sent to all the clerks in SDG from the clerk at the county. And I brought this forward to our mayor to certainly look for council support to this resolution. I can speak personally about what I see at my household with the rural internet and the struggle to have two children trying to do that from home. I've personally heard and witnessed the struggles that teachers are having with trying to get children to be able to learn. And I was just sharing with our mayor today that I did have a discussion with one of my son's teachers just before our council meeting this evening, because I was asked by my son to go away from the online learning and going to asynchronous because he's having difficulty getting through the day on Zoom. I mean, for any one of us who sit on Zoom, sometimes you get tired and it's difficult as an adult, not, let alone a 12 or a 15-year-old. So certainly the idea, and I know I heard about it last week, that they're bringing this into the rural schools or any schools at all is very concerning for me as a parent. And I know from just speaking to the teacher today, that's a concern to the teachers also, that they're finding it difficult to have very good learning with the children and engagements with them. So I think it's, in supporting also the county's initiative around rural education, I think it's important for us to consider that. I think I also have a copy of Frank's letter that he's sending, and it speaks to that. It's important for us to consider online learning and then what happens to our rural schools. So that's my bit of a...
No, appreciate it. Appreciate that. And the fact is that, we've over the last, number of years, we've been trying to get our children to cut down their screen time and face-to-face conversations and outdoor play. And if we take the schools away and do remote learning, we're making this much worse. Councilor Manley.
Yeah, just to follow up that, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On Dr. Paul's call today, he was cautiously optimistic of a May 31st return for students. So that's good news. If that does happen or whatever, the students would be able to be back in class for the final 4 weeks of the year, which would be a great service for the students on that, for sure.
They'll be back just in time for school trips. I like it.
I don't have
Are there any further questions or comments on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion is carried. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Wensing, seconded by Deputy Mayor Williams, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry receives the items from the consent agenda for information purposes only. Are there any questions from the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Notice of motion, our next Regular public meeting of council is Monday, June 14th at 7 p.m. via Zoom. We have no closed session this evening. Confirming bylaw, I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Williams, seconded by Councillor Massey, that the Council of the Township of North Glengarry receive bylaw 23-2021, and that council adopt bylaw 23-2021 being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, and that bylaw 23-2021 be read a first, second, and third time and enacted in open council this 10th day of May, 2021. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion is carried. Before we adjourn, anything from members of council? Councilor Massey.
Yeah, I just got a text from Jeff Molson. They're waiting for us at the Centre Bell to drop the puck. So,
Yeah, they just dropped it.
oh, it's okay.
Good timing, good timing. So I have a motion moved by Councilor Wensink, seconded by Councilor Manley. There being no further business to discuss, the meeting was adjourned at 7:45 p.m. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you to members of staff and council for joining us this evening, and thank you to everyone watching on Facebook. We have some nice weather, so please enjoy it. And it looks like it's going to be a half decent weekend, so get out and enjoy that. And go Habs, go.
Go Habs, go. Night, everybody.